Songs can be pretty powerful. We can learn a lot from them. I believe the music and the lyrics paired can really drive powerful messages. Today we'll take a look at a song that might make some of you church pew warmers and churchins pretty uncomfortable. Metallica. Ready? Let's roll. There are some of us, probably not listeners here, who are absolutely oblivious to the fact that we are judgy. And they won't read about it, they won't listen to it, they won't read books about it. What is it that keeps us from exploring what we need to adjust in our behavior? Are we afraid of change? Are we unaware? Did we forget where we came from? Maybe we just get comfortable in our rules-oriented lives. The Metallica song, Holier Than Thou, gives some insight into some people's perspective on the judgmentalness that we often demonstrate. Unfortunately, I can't play the song because I don't have the license for it, but I can share the lyrics. So here goes. Metallica, Holier Than Thou. No more. The crap rolls off your mouth again. Haven't changed. Your brain is still gelatin. Little whispers circle around your head. Why don't you worry about yourself instead? Who are you? Where you been? Where you from? Gossip is burning on the tip of your tongue. You lie so much you believe yourself. Judge not, lest ye be judged yourself. Holier than thou. You are. You know not. Before you judge me, take a look at you. Can't you find something better to do? Point the finger, slow to understand. Arrogance and ignorance go hand in hand. It's not who you are, it's who you know. Others' lives are the basis of your own. Burning your bridges and building them back with wealth. Judge not, lest ye be judged yourself. Holier than thou, you are. Holier than thou, you are not. Okay, I know I just read a bunch of lyrics, but let's talk about some of these things. So James Hetfield, lead singer of Metallica, actually did put this song together to go along with the music that had actually already been laid down. I don't have a clue how that kind of talent works, but he did it. And like I said, I can't play the song due to copyright laws, but I will say I think this song is so good. I do. But here's why. Musically, it's catchy, it's up-tempo, it's driving, it's intense. I have it on my workout playlist. If you like hard rock and you haven't heard this song, hit pause on the podcast right now and go look it up. Metallica, Holier Than Thou. It's pretty awesome. Number 2, it's expressive of a real frustration. He really sums up some of the actual thoughts about how frustrating it is when people act holier than thou. And it is. He's right. It's frustrating. And then he makes his point. Don't be so pious that you start thinking you're better than everyone else. I feel like we slip into that. More to come on that. Now I want to take a look at some of the concepts in his lyrics and see what makes sense in light of what Metallica is trying to say that we could improve on. They're giving us a gift. Let's take the gift and see what we can improve on. So here's one of those lines. Your brain is still gelatin. Nothing like an insult to make us think, right? I know there's plenty of Christians with operating brains, but I also know that many are like zombies. Follow the rules and everything will be fine. True, but there's more to it than that. His lyrics might be a little jab, and his perspective on how religious people are just kind of brainless sometimes. I have to comment here that a frequent perspective is that our oversimplification of our faith slips into the oversimplification of everything. And we fall into a business as usual / bumper sticker Christianity mindset where we just kind of live by these simplified little rules. And there's more to it than that. We need to use our minds to think through those hard things, to understand the doctrines that are there for us to understand. You offended? Well, lean into it. Here's another line. Why don't you worry about yourself instead? And then the summary of that, who are you? Where you been? Where you from? You know what's cool about this line is it's kind of actually a meditation on Matthew 7 passage about casting judgment on others without exploring our own faults. Take the log out. And then there's Paul that actually wrote about this too. He reminded us that we should all be digging into our own salvation with a deep level of respect for who God is and what we're saved from. The inner work in us as individuals spiritually is super important. In fact, I've noticed that when we're deeply engaged in our own deepening of our soul level life by engaging with God, that we're more aware of our own spiritual depravity. We seem to look in our own mirror more frequently. B, we're less judgmental of others who are also spiritually depraved. We kind of get an understanding that a lot of people are, not a lot, but all of us are depraved. And when we have that understanding, we give that understanding. And the third thing, we actually tend to get, or maybe it's just me, I doubt it. I think we get more interested in a person's story. Here's that relatability theme that I've talked about before. When you care for a person where they are, there's a respect that develops between the two people. And then guess what? The opportunity to share what you believe matters to that person. Okay, more lines from the song. Point the finger, slow to understand. Arrogance and ignorance go hand in hand. I just love this line. It's so true. Arrogance and ignorance go hand in hand. Being blind to our own mistakes makes us ignorant. And ignorance, no matter who we're talking about, is a gross overestimation of self. And let's go back to the very, very beginning. That was the first problem. We wanted to be equal with God as mankind. And Adam and Eve stumbled into the first sin. Pride. Overestimation of self. So, thank you, James Hetfield and Metallica, for your thoughts on this matter and contributing to our conversation, even though you're not here right now. So who is this guy? Who is this James Hetfield? Well, just on my loose observation and following of the band for, shall we say, a while, I've observed that James Hetfield is a really nice guy. He tries to do things that help communities and people. He takes pride in what he does, but he really tries to be a kind human. He has some definite spiritual beliefs, and he's a really articulate guy. He's been interviewed and has said that he believes in a higher power, but doesn't know for sure who it is. He's got a story, including some religion stuff. And his songs, they tell a lot of those stories. So this might be a bit of a unconventional way to look at ourselves, to listen in to someone that doesn't believe the basic tenets of Christian doctrine. But consider that he might have some good points. Someone besides ourselves having good points. Interesting. For those that doubt that this could be worth considering, I think that makes his point from the song. Arrogance and ignorance go hand in hand. We're not listening to him. Also, Proverbs 12:15 says, "The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice." Shouldn't we listen to someone who has a valid point because of his story, and not throw it away because he doesn't believe the basic Christian doctrines and tenets? Well, he hasn't come to that conclusion yet, folks. But that doesn't mean that his experience is invalid, nor is anybody else's. It also doesn't mean that they're right in other things. I want to be clear. I'm not advising that Christians take spiritual advice from James Hetfield or anybody else that is not a Christian. However, I am asking us to consider, and I'm pointing out that those who perceive our judgmental attitudes may have some really good insight as to what can be fixed and adjusted in our people group behavior. To look at another song, Unforgiven, it deals with his really rough childhood, with what he calls Christian fundamentalist parents, who were so strict about their beliefs that many would say they shoved their beliefs down his throat. You heard that one before? I think most of us have. Maybe there's truth to it. Something to consider. Did it make you mad? Lean into it. While he hasn't publicly said that they shoved their beliefs down his throat, when you hear his story with any ounce of compassion, you see the story of a hurt man. A man that was hurt by the religious leanings of his parents. And this is where it's time to take this advice from our new friend James. Let's be wise and listen to advice of people who have a different story. It doesn't mean we throw our convictions in the toilet. It doesn't mean we throw our Bibles in the fire pit. It doesn't mean that we ignore doctrine. It doesn't mean that we change our beliefs. I'm not saying that. That goes against everything that I believe. But what it does mean is that we can learn a lot about what those logs are in our eyes by observing it from other people's stories. Here's my question to pose after this stuff. What could be the relational and even gospel-forward result of hearing people out to the point where we legitimately consider their observations in our own lives and actions? That's just a thinker. What could be that result? I tend to believe it could be pretty powerful. If we live our lives according to the Bible, if we live our lives according to the commandments, the greatest commandments, Jesus said it, love your neighbor as yourself, as the second greatest commandment. And first, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. If we did that, and with those filters, we actually listened to people's perspectives and their stories, what could happen? I think great things. I really do wish I could share both of these songs with you, but the licensing thing, and I know you get it. I don't want to violate that, but I would encourage you to look up those songs. And if you don't like metal, that's fine. At least go and look up the lyrics. We need to consider those who aren't like us to potentially have something brilliant to share with us and help us take the log out of our own eye. Hey, thanks for joining the conversation. Don't forget to follow the podcast or subscribe. Either way, whichever platform you're listening on. I'm glad you're joining the conversation. I'll talk to you next time. I love you.
To support Christianese with JD Shin, click in the show notes. It'll help my dad create future shows.